Okay, so this video is look at two 1986 M.A.S.K annuals. On the last video, I showed this 1986 UK M.A.S.K annual, pointing out material which might be different to M.A.S.K media outside the UK. So now I'm going to do the same thing with my other M.A.S.K annuals, also from 1986. So this one has more reprints of the DC M.A.S.K comic. I showed my very first DC M.A.S.K comic on the last video, and I've since tracked a few more down in comic shops. But at the time this was my only source of them. That's why I love these things so much. Just like in the M.A.S.K annual I showed on the previous video, this one also has text stories to go along with the comic. This one's called Mooncrack. A bit of innuendo there, which went completely over my head back then. There's a weapon in the story called a C-bomb. It means something else these days when someone drops a C-bomb. I'll say no more. In the comic story of the last annual, Hurricane was called Firecracker and Stinger was called Scorpion. Now in here, Hurricane is back to being called Hurricane and Stinger is Stinger again. It's hard to keep up with all these name changes. That's it for this annual, so I'll move on to the next one. This one breaks with tradition and doesn't have any reprinted DC M.A.S.K comics. Instead, it has this comic story which must have been made specifically for this annual, as I don't recognise the artwork from the UK M.A.S.K comic which I used to get. The DC comics had better artwork though. But just like the last two annuals, this also has a text story in it. As you can see, it features Stinger/Scorpion, which is back to being called Scorpion, and the claw weapon which comes out of the boot is called the Stinger Claw. I give up. There are also more fact files on the characters like in the annual on that last video I did. This one about Hondo McLean says he's the co-pilot of Gator. I've only ever seen this in UK M.A.S.K publications. In the American cartoon, he was either the driver of Firecracker or Hurricane, never the co-pilot of Gator. But I think he really suits it, as his blaster mask looks like the goggles of scuba diving equipment, and Gator is an aquatic vehicle, so it all adds up. I went out and bought the Hondo McLean figure from the 2-packs you could get, just so my Gator had the full crew, which came from reading the UK M.A.S.K comics and annuals. The fact files also reveal more codenames which the characters never used. So Julio Lopez's codename was Doc, Venom Agent Cliff Dagger Scorch, Floyd Malloy Birdman, and Sly Raxia Stinger. Yes, I'm opening up that can of worms again. There's no way an organisation would use the same name for one of their vehicles and one of their agents. It would just be too confusing and would lead to mistakes. So if Sly Raxia's codename is Stinger, then the orange car which turns into a tank Bruno Shepard drives has to be called Scorpion and nothing else. You can't argue with that logic. That issue is now put to bed once and for all. Okay, so that was a look at two 1986 UK M.A.S.K annuals, and hopefully you'll join me on another video sometime.